The west coast of Vancouver Island. A palette of spectacular landscapes. From barren coastlines to world-famous hiking trails. A coastal adventure destination.
Tofino is a small community located on the west coast. It's Canada's surfing capital.
A legacy of natural disaster.
Some people just didn't realize what was going to happen.
And a decades-old emergency response team defending this region.
Firefighting's pretty exciting. There's no fooling around, it's the real thing.
Now, we reveal the coastlines like never before, unlocking the secrets of our maritime past, present, and future. Canada, over the edge. For more than 200 kilometers, the western perimeter of Vancouver Island lies nearly untouched. It is accessible only by boat or plane, a rarely seen gem of nature. This is Mcka Marine Provincial Park. Named after the 18th century First Nations chief, Mcka. The park measures more than 2,500 hectares of wilderness. Hikers and explorers are drawn here for Mcka's scenery, including miles of rugged sea caves, etched in time over millions of years. Offshore, jagged rocks line the shoreline. It is one of the signature features of this coastal region. Rough headlands and subsea reefs, a scenic wonder in calm seas, but a nightmare for navigators caught in coastal winds and waves. Continuing southeast, Flores Island measures 150 square kilometers of tranquil beauty. It is traditional territory of the Mcka First Nation. Spanish explorers arrived in the 18th century, and the island was named in honor of Manuel Antonio Flores, the 51st Viceroy of New Spain. The island is also home to Flores Island Provincial Park, featuring an array of wildlife and 3 protected watersheds within an awesome network of ancient Sitka spruce forests. It is the heart of a region known as Clayoquot Sound. Decades ago, this was the scene of worldwide anti-logging protests. Today, it is a protected United Nations biosphere reserve.
A biosphere reserve is a designation by UNESCO. And there's a set of criteria to list a biosphere reserve and to have that protective status. There has to definitely a perspective of preservation. And basically it's that there's a viable First Nations community within that biosphere reserve that lives and lives right on their territory.
The designation recognized the need to preserve over 100,000 hectares of coastal rainforest. It also recognized the unique cultural legacy of this region.
The First Nations within this designation is Ahousaht First Nation, Heshkwet First Nation, Clayoquot First Nation, Tuquot First Nation, and Uklutlat First Nation. And it's a beautiful territory to be associated with.
The UNESCO designation effort was supported by local communities, First Nations, and government. It marked the end of a lengthy conflict, seen by many as victory for both the coastal environment and First Nations residents.
20 years ago, I would say that the communities were fairly divided. There was what was termed the War in the Woods at the time. There was a real upswelling of protest that reached a very global perspective. And the protest was very much centered around watersheds that were being logged of their old growth timber.
It was protected, it was not to be logged, and the First Nations had their right and their say in preservation, and it was international recognition of First Nations' sovereign right to their lands and their territories and what happens within it. It was a great thing to see.
There was definitely a shift in the whole industrial perspective, and I would say that the communities in Clayoquot Sound led the way into that. Although the focal point was the trees, and there are a number of different species and old-growth trees that are majestic and huge and absolutely wonderful, there's a whole host of life that lives not just within these trees, but that is interconnected to all of the trees and the underground and the oceans and the rivers and the salmon. It's all connected.
Today, Clayoquot Sound continues to be a home to some of the world's most remarkable coastal rainforest and a home for First Nations peoples.
The way we were raised, everything has life. A stone, a blade of grass, everything requires respect and honor.
Just offshore the natural wonder known as Clayoquot Sound, Leonard Island lies below. On the southwest corner of the island, Leonard Island Light Station, built in 1904, rises above the rocky shoreline. It is a welcome sight to mariners along a notorious stretch of coast, known as the Graveyard of the Pacific. Kilometers away, on shore, Tofino is the first major community along this marine perimeter. It is an eerie coastal wonder, shrouded in fog and mist throughout much of the year. The town acquired its modern-day name in 1909 after cartographer Admiral Vincent Tofino. another legacy of Spanish coastal exploration centuries ago. The settlement drew farmers and was the base of operations for a small fishery. But the town was cut off from the outside world, accessible only by boat. A road connecting Tofino to the rest of Vancouver Island was not constructed until 1959. Today, Tofino marks the end of the island's Highway 4, more than 150 kilometers of roadway, beginning on Vancouver Island's eastern coastline. The region is adorned with some of the most spectacular buildings, resorts, and homes Vancouver Island has to offer. The shoreline surrounding Tofino is home to roughly 1,500 people. It is a mix of longtime residents and those seeking solitude and scenery. Roughly 1 million people visit Tofino each year, drawn by scenic wonders like Clayoquot Sound and Mcka Marine Provincial Park. It is a destination for recreation seekers from around the world.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen, all for free. No subscription required.
It is a haven for surfers, considered by many to be Canada's top surf destination.
We're in Tofino, BC, Canada, and today we're surfing on Cox Bay. Tofino is a small community located on the west coast. We have a population of about 1,500 people. Although in the summertime it swells to probably around 5,000 with all the seasonal workers. And it's Canada's surfing capital. There's a ton of surf here, and the sport has gotten more and more popular over the years. We still have lots of other types of tourism here, but surfing is probably our #1 industry now. Still remember the first time I came to Tofino to learn to surf. From the second I stepped into the water, I fell in love. I was only supposed to come up to Tofino for 1 summer to learn to surf, and 14 years later, I'm here and I'm here to stay. I love this place. The surfing here in Tofino can be quite rugged, so it develops a different type of surfing breed out there. It's one of those sports where if you're down in California, you can hang out on the beach and suntan and, just pretend, kind of play the part. But here, the surfers are real. It's not that much fun to put on a big, wetsuit every day to head out there. So you get a real dedicated crop of surfers. A lot more rugged probably than some of the other surfers, in warmer places.
Another unique feature of Tofino's surf scene is its demographic. Tofino is a haven for female surfers, an idea promoted by Chrissy Montgomery and her Surf Sisters team.
It's just made like a resource outlet for women who kind of want to be interested in the sport, but were maybe a bit intimidated in the first place. Out here, it's common to have half the water be females and half the water males, whereas any other place you go in the world for surfing, you won't find that. Maybe 1 in 10, 1 in 20, 1 in 50 surfers is a female, whereas out here, it's almost half and half these days. In a class, it's so beautiful to watch like a girl come out who's maybe shy at first, and by the end of the lesson, she's proud she can do this thing that's not an easy sport by any means, but it's definitely got a really rewarding feel to it. I definitely think in the future, surfing will only get more popular here. I'm pretty excited about the new group of athletes that's growing up here in this community. A lot of us surfers out here are sort of first-generation surfers. Our parents didn't surf or anything, so the sport, was something that we learned sort of later on in life. Whereas there's a lot of young families, a lot of young kids starting out here. I'm really excited to see just the local talent grow, as well as just the integrity of, surfing in Canada in general.
Heading inland, the majestic landscape of Vancouver Island rises up for all to see. This is Strathcona Provincial Park, British Columbia's oldest, established in 1911. It covers more than 2,500 square kilometers, an incredible collection of mountains, glaciers, and lakes. The landscape is a mix of ancient Paleozoic rock and layers of volcanic basalt, kilometers thick. The mountains here belong to the Vancouver Island Range, covering 30,000 square kilometers, part of the larger insular mountain chain. The chain was formed by the movement of tectonic plates over millions of years. Today, those plates continue to collide, meaning these mountains will continue to rise. Next, a return to the rugged coast, and we trace a legacy of natural disaster along Vancouver Island's amazing inland waterways. From Strathcona Provincial Park, we return to the coast, Vancouver Island's western Pacific coastline. This is the town of Ucluelet, set 40 kilometers southwest of Tofino. Ucluelet is translated "people of the safe harbor," from the indigenous Nootka language. The town is home to just over 1,500 people and has had a First Nations presence for more than 4,000 years. European settlers arrived in the 1870s, seeking seal fur and later gold. In the early 20th century, a lighthouse was built, marking the development of the coastal fishing and whaling industries. Beyond Ucluelet, the Alberni Inlet is Vancouver Island's main inland waterway. It is a long, narrow passage, twisting and turning with the contours of the inlet. The waterway is home to some of the world's top salmon and halibut fishing. Further inland, the banks of the inlet rise, on approach to the changing landscape of the Alberni Valley. This is the midway point of Vancouver Island, a unique stretch surrounded by mountains, rainforests, lakes, and streams. Finally, 48 kilometers from the open waters of the Pacific, this is the town of Port Alberni. It is home to 25,000 people and is named after Captain Alberni, another Spanish explorer. The town was established in the 19th century as fur traders sought a land route across Vancouver Island. Port Alberni quickly became the hub of the forestry sector, with its proximity to abundant natural resources. BC's first sawmill opened here in 1861. In the coming decades, others would begin operations, and BC lumber quickly became a top export. But many say Port Alberni's most famous moment came on the heels of one of the West Coast's great disasters of the 20th century.
On Easter weekend in 1964, there was a tragic earthquake in Alaska. The high-speed tsunami wave proceeded down the west coast of Alaska and then past the Queen Charlottes. And as it came down the west coast, it was just the right shape and proceeding in just the right direction that it kind of hooked on the end of Barkley Sound. Because of the shape of the Barkley Sound, the water was trapped, and then as it moved in up the fjord, the trapped water, instead of being only inches high out in the Barkley Sound area, which it was, it became narrower and narrower, but higher and higher. By the time it proceeded into the harbor area, it was coming in just like a big high tide. The water just kept coming up and up and up, and it came up to a height some 18 or 20 feet higher than the highest high tide that we would have ever seen. I recall just the huge amount of debris floating and the movement of the water going in great circles like a big bathtub swirl. The damage that was caused by the inundation of the water was a huge economic hit to the valley. The forest industry, the mills, most of the pulp mills and the sawmills are in lower areas, and they were all flooded with salt water. Any electronics, of course, were destroyed.
Don Bryant was one of Port Alberni's disaster first responders.
I was one of the squad leaders and a part-time coordinator for the rescue squad at the time. I received a phone call from the RCMP about 11:30 on the Friday night to get the squad out. There had been a flood on River Road. By that time, the RCMP and the police department had been around with a loudhailer telling everybody to evacuate. We had at that time, I believe, 25 members of the rescue squad. We got them organized, so we tried to get them going door to door so every door was knocked on before the big wave hit. And like I say, there was just some people just didn't realize what was going to happen. And we didn't either till after it was over. It was definitely a miracle that nobody was killed.
I guess one of the outcomes of the tsunami in '64 was that it put Port Alberni on the map as oh, that's the place where the tsunami happened.
It's something that will never be forgotten by the people that were here, that's for sure. I was born here, and I never saw anything like it before, and I'm sure, I hope I don't want to see it again either.
Since the tsunami, Port Alberni has become a leader in coastal disaster prevention. Throughout the town, loudspeakers stand ready to warn residents of impending high waters. It is a bold attempt to avoid future disaster on one of Western Canada's most serene and peaceful inland waterways. From Port Alberni, we head south along the Alberni Inlet towards the open waters of the Pacific. Just outside town, Sprout Lake lines the inlet and holds another example of Port Alberni's legacy of disaster relief. These are the largest flying boats ever flown operationally. They are the Martin Mars fleet, featuring the soon-to-be retired Philippine Mars and the Hawaii Mars. They are formidable forest fire water bombers, a beloved symbol of the Alberni region. Pete Killen is a pilot with the Martin Mars fleet.
Okay, I'll give you a quick tour of the aircraft. Up front here in the bow is our anchor compartment. Have a Danforth anchor in the winch system. It's deployed out this door through a davit. Anchors drop down, and we can day base in various areas. When we go out and have to hold for a little while, we'll put the anchor out and wait for our assignments. So in here we've got 3 gel and foam tanks, 180 US gallons a tank. They converted 2 center fuel tanks into a water tank, and that's what you see here. And I can give you an idea of what you got in here. This is 6,000 gallons of capacity. Water is introduced into the aircraft by 2 probes situated just behind the step of the aircraft. There's a toggle switch on the console that we just select probes down. Water's rammed in at about 70 knots. Takes 30 seconds to put on 6,000 gallons of water.
The bombers are designed to carry a payload of more than 27,000 kilograms. They have been described as a huge wet blanket.
So in this area here, the upper cargo area, when this airplane was in Navy service, not only was it a cargo plane, but it was also a great big ambulance. I think the last flight that these aircraft did with the Navy was 1956. They were put up for sale and they were actually bought for $100,000. But they got the 4 airplanes ferried up to Victoria and they were converted into a firefighting role. So this is the flight engineer station. There's 2 engineers at any given time. The lead engineer, she's taking care of the start. Second engineer would be downstairs in the bow of the airplane. And after the start order has been called, he'll release the airplane from the buoy, and then we go off. After we've taxied out, there's 20 minutes of warm-up before we can go through the systems checks on the airplane.
4 bombers were originally converted into flying firefighting machines. The first crashed in a tragic operation. Another was destroyed during a typhoon. The remaining 2, the Philippine Mars and the Hawaii Mars, have flown for more than 45 years.
So we got 4 Wright Cyclone engines, 2,500 horsepower each, so we have 10,000 horsepower. Oil capacity on these engines are 100 gallons of oil per engine. We consume about between 2 and 3 gallons an hour. All right. Yeah, could I have a pre-start check, please?
Pre-start check, dump door switches.
Selected, closed.
Probe switch.
Selected up.
Gel switch.
Selected off.
Control valve.
Are in place.
Power forward, circuit breakers, video, circuit breakers, pallets, pedestal.
Are all in.
And video circuit breakers, the breakers are set. Ignition switches.
4 on, off at the post.
And throttles.
Free and full travel.
Since the tragic loss of the prototype bomber in 1961, the Philippine and Hawaii Mars have flown accident-free, a testament to the dedication and skills of Killen and his team. Prior to being converted to water bombers in 1961, the Martin Mars fleet flew 87,000 hours for the U.S. Navy, setting airlift and endurance records that are yet to be broken.
We can go out for a long time. Typically, we'll go for about a 5-hour sortie, and then we've started running low on our gels and stuff like that, and fuel.
Along with water, the bombers carry more than 2,000 liters of foam concentrate and specialized firefighting thermogels. The bombers can drop any of these payloads, depending on the nature of the fire.
Firefighting's pretty exciting. We get down and we get serious about our jobs, and there's no fooling around. It's the real thing. There's days that it's we're working in some pretty marginal conditions, mostly smoke. We have turbulence, confined areas. You know, fires are never textbook. They're in hard to reach places and very steep terrain. We have high altitude, just working the airplane to its maximum capabilities.
Working together, the bombers can release more than 27,000 liters every 7 minutes, covering 1.6 hectares. Now, the Philippine Mars is set to be retired to the National Naval Aviation Museum in Florida, making the Hawaii Mars the last remaining water bomber of its kind in the world. The retirement is a bittersweet moment for residents in the Sprout Lake region and for Pete Killen.
Well, most people in Port Alberni consider these their airplanes. They've been so iconic in their life on this lake. On that beach over there, I was 8 years old on vacation with my dad and my sisters, and looked over from that beach over to this spot here, and there was one of the Mars were here painted blue. Talked to my dad about it, and he said that they were here to become firefighters. And that would have been 1961. I kind of wish my dad had lived long enough to see me become one of the pilots of it.
Returning to the coast, the open waters of Barkley Sound lie below. It's an 800 square kilometer body of water connecting Alberni Inlet with the Pacific Ocean. It is home to hundreds of tiny islands and is the marine boundary separating the town of Ucluelet to the west and Cape Beale Lighthouse to the east. Cape Beale's light station is the oldest on Vancouver Island's western coastline. The original station was completed in 1874. Its light visible 30 kilometers out to sea. The station was rebuilt in 1958 and today stands 10 meters tall, 51 meters above sea level. The shorelines of Vancouver Island's west coast are a rugged gem along the vast waters of the Pacific. This coastline is also the site of one of Canada's most impressive national parks. Pacific Rim National Park Reserve is a hidden treasure, encompassing beaches, islands, and remote hiking trails. The rugged coastlines are lined by incredible temperate rainforests, a gem of Canada's west coast.
Right now, we're in Pacific Rim National Park Reserve. We're located on the outer west coast of Vancouver Island, and the park is situated in a narrow strip basically between the Vancouver Island range of the Insular Mountains and the Pacific Ocean.
Pacific Rim National Park Reserve covers more than 500 kilometers of coastline. The unique climate produces an abundance of natural life.
We have a broad diversity of both flora and fauna, consisting of Sitka spruce, cedar hemlock. We have 3 large carnivores that inhabit this area, namely cougar, wolf, and black bear.
The park is divided into 3 distinct and separate sections: the Broken Group Islands, the world-famous West Coast Trail, and the Long Beach Unit, popular for recreation.
The Long Beach unit of the park is very popular for surfers. So we have beautiful expanses of beaches here with soft sand, a little bit of forest for hiking, as well as beautiful surf for surfing. We've got a lot of people that come from all over the world to recreate and be here as a tourist destination because it's so beautiful. But we also have a lot of wildlife here, so that makes it really unique. The Broken Group Islands are situated in Barkley Sound, and that's just south of the Long Beach unit, and it's comprised of about 100 smaller islets, most of which are very sheltered. As such, the water is very calm. So it's very popular for kayakers and recreational boaters. The most southernmost unit is the West Coast Trail, and that is primarily a world-renowned hiking trail and old-growth forest. The West Coast Trail originated as a telegraph line, and in 1906, after the wreck of the Valencia, they made it into a life-saving trail to help with possible evacuations from Cape Bill to Victoria. And after that, it kind of became a world-renowned hiking trail, and that's what it exists today. It's about 75 kilometers long of very rugged terrain that passes through beaches and large tracts of old-growth forest. There are amazing wildlife to be seen along the West Coast Trail, and it takes about 5 or 6 days to hike in total, and you're exposed right open to the Pacific Ocean, so it's quite an experience. For local people that live here, this park is amazing. It's in their backyard, both terrestrial environment as well as the marine environment. It's basically one giant playground to go and recreate and live. This is a really magical place for our local people.
From the ecological wonders of Clayoquot Sound along Vancouver Island's rugged western perimeter, to scenic Alberni Inlet and the industrial heart of the province in Port Alberni. Vancouver Island's western region is an incredible showcase. With a human timeline stretching back more than 4,000 years, the legacies of this coastline carry on. Enshrined forever in the unforgettable coastlines and awe-inspiring inlets, here on the edge of Canada.